Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sledgehammers in the Office podcast, where we celebrate the heavy hitters on the job site and in the office. If you're new to the show, we have two types of shows. One's the typical interview style, interview someone on the podcast to talk about their experience in the industry that they're in, and we try and learn from them and share their story. And the second show that we have is what we're doing tonight. That's where we follow along with three businesses as we're in the process of growing them. So I have Alex von Reich from Control Analytics, and Connor Teich, who's our real estate expert here on the show. So before we jump into all the business updates and what's going on with that, let's talk about, boys, what have we been up to this last month?
Well, I'm pretty sure there was, a small holiday that, no one ever celebrates that recently happened. What is it? Easter. Yeah, Easter, right. I feel like as soon as you have a kid, immediately Easter plans are just some kind of Easter hunt, some kind of church event. Everyone's got to look pretty. Everyone's got to have all the pictures, all that kind of stuff. So, that was a fun time. My 1.5-year-old got to do his first Easter egg hunt, and it's like the grass was as tall as he was. It was pretty great.
Did you dress up pretty, Alex?
I did not dress up pretty.
Okay.
No. I mean, I did like a standard like short sleeve button up. Nothing too fancy. But we went over to we drove down to Schnepp Farms over I don't know, like Queen Creek, is that technically the area? Over actually we're nearby where Thaddeus got married. And they have a really cool little Easter thing that they do, and some people apparently can't listen. They're like, all right, everyone, you got to wait. And then people just like start going in, and it's like the adults are as fiendish as like the kids are and it's like 1 and 2-year-olds that they're supposed to go in, and they're like, don't go yet. And they're like, go. And then the guy had to like round everyone up. I was like, guys, just chill out. It's like cheap candy and toys.
It's an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
Thousands of people.
Well, I don't know that there were thousands of people. There were definitely like maybe a few hundred, and then they had different groups. They had like an adult one too. So if you're 18 or older, you could do that one. But yeah, we just did it for the 1.5-year-old, and he was having a great time running around picking up eggs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you guys? What did you do for Easter?
Ed?
We had a lunch with my dad's side of the family, and my mom's side of the family was out of town. They were actually on a cruise that went from Florida to San Diego to the Panama Canal. But
oh, heck yeah.
So we did stuff with my dad's side of the family, then my wife's side of the family after that. But the stuff with my dad's side of the family, one of the things we did, and I may have told you guys about this game last time, was you get everyone partners up, you all get in a circle, there's a bunch of toilet paper in the middle, and you've got the person who's not blindfolded has to tell the blindfolded person where to go pick up toilet paper, and you're trying to throw it at the person at the other teams and get them out. So if you get hit by that roll of toilet paper, you're out and it's last man standing. So we did 2 rounds. Me and my partner, we got to the top 2 both times. We didn't win, but both times we got to the top 2, and it's a blast both ways, where you're trying to tell the person like, go this way, like 3 o'clock at your feet. Like at the end, it's just mayhem. And then being the blindfolded person, I almost took my head out several times. Like they have a trampoline in the backyard, they have a tree and a fence, and I'm moving around probably a little quicker than most blindfolded people would be. So, but it was a huge blast, and did a Easter egg hunt for like the adults as well. And just, it's when the whole family on my dad's side gets together, we get down. So it was a good time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. What is it? Is that all the Klauses?
Yeah, it's the Klaus's, Camerons, and Satterfields. So,
well, I'm sure you guys are a pretty competitive bunch. So I'm sure it's.
Yes.
I've heard about your pool basketball games.
Yeah.
It's fun.
What about you, Connor? What'd you do?
Our Easter, we just went over to my parents. I have 3 older siblings. They all have kids, so it was an afternoon of 7 kids running around, which always leads into adults running around. So a lot of people running around all afternoon, which was
there
fun.
You go.
Yeah, this past weekend celebrated Mother's Day.
Nice.
Big holiday. My wife's first Mother's Day, so that was fun.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. Went to the aquarium, which was a blast. Our daughter was just staring at the jellyfish. I don't know if you guys have taken your kids there.
I actually went to the aquarium on Saturday. That's really funny that you
Did you? That's when I went, Alex.
What time were you there?
Wow. Like 1 to 3.
Okay, yeah, we went like in the morning at like 9
Morning
9 to
stuff.
11. It was perfect. There was like apparently the aquarium on Mother's Day weekend was very chill.
Not from 1 to 3. It was pretty busy. There were tons of kids. It was fun though.
That's
There's
fun.
still room to walk.
Yeah, I definitely looked up how reasonable it would be to own a jellyfish, because like
Oh, dear God.
they are super cool, but it's expensive, and they're
Really?
like they live like maybe 2 years, and apparently they're really picky about like the tanks and water that you put them in. So I'm like, okay, maybe not, but they do look cool. Like the jellyfish exhibit's like one of my favorite.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
That's hilarious.
past month was tax day too.
Oh, very exciting.
Did you guys submit payments, or are you gonna
No, I don't believe
do
in
it till
taxes.
later? Oh,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's fine for you.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, we're sovereign citizens or whatever those.
I won't let
Are.
anyone know.
Yeah, I just hope and pray that they fire enough IRS agents that it's never an issue for me.
Yeah. I'll pray on your behalf.
Thanks. No, actually, it was a decent tax year. It was one of those like things have definitely gotten more complicated, but I feel like I've done it enough years now that it's like it is whatever. I can't imagine what it's like from your perspective with all the real estate stuff on top of it.
I don't do it. I don't file. Our accountant files. So
There you go.
you know what he's doing. Hopefully it's correct.
Yeah. You'll find out one way or another, right? or just wait 7 years.
Just wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do we have a sponsor for the show, Thaddeus?
Yeah,
Or
we do, but
sponsor.
we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I've got one more story for you guys before we move on.
Ooh, can't wait.
And I just got to go on the record of saying I did pay my taxes. And I was very happy with how I talked to my tax guy. I'm like, hey, here's what I'm doing. He's like, just keep doing that. And I've done this to him multiple times, but I go in like a doofus and I'm just like, this is what I'm doing. Is it okay? He's like, just keep doing that. And I'm just like, okay, I'll keep doing that. Then show up next year, hoping to God that like I did it again. Is it okay? And he's like, yeah, good job, dude. Like pats me on the head, turns me around, get out of there. And I'm like, all right. So, but there's the funny story is this morning we had some guys over to cut down a tree in my neighbor's yard. So it's right on our property line essentially. So we split it with our neighbor to chop it down, because if it was going to destroy anything, it was going to be our vehicles. So I was like, hey, your tree's dead. Like, is it cool if we... So guys are chopping it down this morning, and so I grabbed my son to go watch as the tree comes down. And the window we're watching from, we see it go down. It's cool, but I see the guy as it's falling. He's waving and like yelling at the guys. So I'm like, oh, but I can't see what happened. So we go over to another window, and the other guys are standing there. So I was like, no one's hurt. That's good. And then it looks like some of their equipment was destroyed on the ground, because I see this metal thing in this box that's locked. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. Like they put something of theirs. He comes over, he's cutting away some of the branches around that stuff. And then he picks up the thing that's laying on the ground. And I'm like, oh, that's my mailbox.
Oh,
Oh man.
Well, you get a new mailbox then.
So I saw it. I was like, whatever. So I came out and he's like, dude, I gotta tell you, like, we took out your mailbox. I'm like, don't worry about it. I was planning on redoing that thing anyways. I want to do it out of like cinder block and put like a sundial on top of it. So
Oh, that'd be cool.
yeah, but
Now you got a reason to do it quickly.
Yeah.
yes.
Oh.
So yeah, it was
Just put a little like
hilarious.
cardboard box in the meantime and say like temporary mailbox or something like that.
Well, they were able to stand it back. Like, it's sitting out there. You wouldn't really be able to tell. It looks like someone kind of hit it with a baseball bat for the most part, but it's there. So I would assume that it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to get it rebuilt. So
Sweet.
But yeah. All right. Now, of course, we have our unofficial ad read for this month. And I had planned on reading what I had written out, which was definitely not from Shamrock Farms. So we're going to go in a different direction. A lot of news has been made recently about the tariffs and what that means for us. And Shamrock Farms is sourced here locally in Arizona. But did that stop me? No. What I thought was I need to double up this week and get twice as much Shamrock Farms. Look at that. Even Connor knows what's up.
He is ready to go.
Connor, you got to say something so the camera switches to you.
You guys need to try this stuff. It will change your life. It's 4 servings per container. We all know it's going to be 1 serving. I don't know why they put 4. Great stuff.
I took down 8 servings in under an hour. So,
jeez.
If that's a statement to our commitment to Shamrock Farms, then there you go.
Can we do, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the podcast, but as long as we post it to the YouTube channel of like the blind taste test, we have to do that at some point.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
We've talked about it for far too long. I will come over to your house and I will set up the taste test and we will record it.
I'd love next month maybe if we do the podcast in person and then we knock it out if that works for everybody.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun.
I'm just very excited to see how you do.
Oh, it's 5 for 5. Not even close.
I'm gonna mess you up real bad.
Why? You're gonna mix them together?
No, I'm not gonna cheat. I don't need to cheat to mess you up. I just have I think I'm gonna have a good selection and I think it's gonna trip you up.
What do you mean a good selection?
You will find out.
No, I told you which ones I could tell the difference between.
I'm
Walmart, Fry's,
yeah,
Shamrock Farms, Danhuysen, and then milk with Hershey syrup.
And we will have one other mystery contender that will keep you on your toes.
All right, if we have one other mystery contender, whatever. But...
Strawberry milk.
Oh dear God.
Just kidding. Funny. Anyways.
All right, let's get down to business. Let's talk about materials real quickly. 2x4s are at $385, plywood's at $18.78, copper. Forgot to put it in the notes, so don't care. Those prices have stayed the same over the last couple months. In terms of gross numbers or gross money that we have taken in, someone's trying to call.
Surprise guest.
No. Anyways, moving on. Money we took in $32,112. I was pretty happy with that. Just as far as stuff was hitting, I know I mentioned last time we had essentially one large check that was carrying a bunch of it, and so. But I'm hoping that I'll have a good idea of what my net numbers are pretty soon, because the action steps that I had from last month with the job tracking. We have gotten a lot cleaned up in terms of our bookkeeping, and I've talked about before that a lot of my bookkeeping was if we closed out jobs and the bank account was still trending in the right direction, I was like, hey, like we're still here. But now we're starting to get a lot better idea. I'm actually meeting with the guy who's been on the podcast before, Alan Crawford, tomorrow, and he's actually going to essentially do an audit of my company. So I've got financial projections laid out and then reviews for like 3 different jobs. So he's going to take a look at as far as like how I'm estimating things, what I'm planning on, where the overhead is and everything like that. So I might even have some of that for next month, but I'm very happy that the stuff that we're doing, and especially how my sister's been helping out and kind of forcing me to deal with some of that, has really helped with giving a better, clearer picture of where everything's at. And the part that I'm very grateful with that is I feel like certain jobs are coming in that would have been a complete mess if I hadn't done a lot of this work. So very happy about that. And then the other thing was I was still having my sister do reach outs to some of the designers through Instagram. Now, I'm honestly very happy with how she did with that, especially a couple weeks ago. I think we've messaged the bulk of them that we've been able to even just find. But 2 weeks ago, she was on a streak of just reaching out to them. We ended up having a couple phone calls with them. So within a week, one of the designers was calling saying, hey, can you put together a proposal for my house for one of the bathrooms? So I was like, okay, there we go. Had a conversation with one on the west side. So we're going to try and get her on the podcast and just build that relationship there. And with that, I didn't have to give her a list of designers. I didn't have to walk her through like, hey, here's what you say to this one and this one. She did all of it and then said, hey, these people are responding. Like, do you want to have a phone call with this person? So I was super happy about that, just to see like it was nice not to be the only person that feels like I'm doing work in the business. And so she's doing a great job with that right now. Action steps going into next month. I'm going to start working on building out the training program. I've kind of teased that for a while. We have a good lead flow currently. So this is the time that I feel like it's going to be good to put energy into that, along with I'm bringing on one of my cousins for the summer in a part-time capacity. So it's going to be a good 1.0 version of what does this training look like. And he's very he's got a good work ethic, and he jumps on stuff when he's been on some of the projects with some of the work, but he doesn't understand the trade, which is perfect for what I'm looking to do, because I want to take someone from that 0 that we talked about on our 0 to 10 scale and see how quickly can we move him up in there, and what does that look like. So that's going to be the big thing. And then before I hand this off to Connor, I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing with some of the tariff stuff, especially in the construction industry, because talking to people casually, they'll talk about, oh, are you guys seeing prices going up? Are things going nuts because of tariffs? And honestly, we haven't. Reality of the situation is not changed. And you guys can see that for the numbers that we're tracking on the podcast. And that's why we do it, as far as you can see 2x4s, you can see plywood. That's the bulk of what we're using on the framing side. But we haven't seen stuff like COVID where things were out of control. 2x4s were just astronomical, and you were having huge changes like that. So digging into that a little bit, I wanted to figure out why is that? Because there's certain rumblings that, oh, that's still coming. There's stockpiles of materials, or there's inventory we just haven't run through yet. And that kind of explains it. So doing a little bit of research, one of the big things that we're seeing with some of the materials comes down to this USMCA exemption, the United States, Mexico, and Canada exemption. So from what this is, there's strict guidelines on what this means, but essentially it's saying, hey, we're not going to tariff each other in North America. So we're kind of treating kind of like its own pseudo country. The one caveat to this is that lumber, like dimensional lumber, is kind of an exception to this. So that's something that we might see get hit, and I'll get to that in just a second. But one of the things that we're seeing in this exemption or a couple things, are drywall, cabinets, electrical components, flooring, along with doors and windows. So the rules with this seem to be that everything has to be sourced from North America. If you have materials coming from outside of North America and then you're assembling it in Canada, Mexico, wherever, like that's when the US tariffs are going to apply to it. But if all the wood for your cabinets and manufacturing and the metal for your hardware, it all comes from North America, you fit inside that exemption. So it's kind of interesting to see all of that play out. And then I would love to see, like, obviously we kind of have this on again, off of again relationship with Canada and some of the other countries with the tariffs. But if they go through, how do the manufacturers respond to that? Do they say, hey, we're going to see a bigger, or we can see a bigger savings if we fit inside some of these exemptions just to source all of the stuff, not just necessarily in our own country, but inside of North America? The other thing that people were pointing out was that I think a lot of people saw what's happening with the tariffs and responded similarly to what they saw from COVID, where they anticipated there's prices are going to be going up. So they started making deals for, hey, let's start, I would assume, pre-buying or buying in bulk. So they've got large inventories so that you don't see all of a sudden prices go from almost $4 up to $5 and beyond right away. So the other thing too is that some of the companies might they have a backlog of inventory, but they also might be absorbing some of that cost before they start to slowly give that back to the consumer. Now that's a way for them to kind of give time to the governments to say, hey, figure your crap out. And so that we don't have to see this blip on everything and keep everything relatively smooth, but that's kind of to be seen. So, and then I just want to I've got one more example real quick. And then just to reiterate though, for everything that I've seen, we haven't seen our prices jump. I haven't had any of my vendors or any of my trades say, hey, things are going up because of tariffs or whatever. So that might still be seen. I've heard some people saying June is going to be the date. And if that's the case, then we'll, in the next couple months, but haven't seen that so far. The one thing that we have seen is people using the tariffs as an excuse to raise a price. So I may have mentioned this before on the podcast, but the window and door company that I used to work for, they mentioned that they had some manufacturers who told them, hey, our price sheet is going to be changing due to the fact that the tariffs are affecting our raw materials. And they're kind of responding going, hey, don't you get all your supplies from here in the US, so nothing's getting tariffed. But a convenient way for them to kind of get a little bit extra margin on their products. So people are fudging the system. It's kind of how we had with COVID, where it's COVID, and then it's supply chain, and then it's whatever excuse ever on top of it for like 2 years after it was no longer a thing anymore. But that's where we're at. So
yeah, I think the big difference I think with the tariffs too is like, even so as of today on the 12th of May, surprisingly, China and America just delayed tariffs for another 90 days. So a lot of people weren't expecting that. And that kind of delay is happening back and forth. I think it's used mostly as a bargaining chip. So I think that's why it's very different from like a full out closure. And it's still having effects, but I don't think it's going to affect things as much as long as we continue to do this back and forth of, oh, the tariffs are about to go into effect. Just kidding. And so but I think Thaddeus is 100% right. People are going to take advantage of it. And eventually you see a lot of like market corrections, right? Like we've seen 2x4s come back down, plywood come back down, copper come back down to reasonable levels as the supplies come up. And, at a point, people just can't justify that anymore and like justify those insane prices. I actually wanted to circle back to something really quick, Thaddeus, regarding your accounting. I was going to ask, with you figuring out the systems better and having your sister help you, has that changed how you're billing clients at all? Have you done anything differently with that? Have you switched your method of accounting at all or anything like that when you're billing, or are there any new projects where you might be trying different types of accounting?
Not necessarily. Like it's the thing that we're doing is we have more project tracking.
Gotcha.
So we're just tracking what's happening. Nothing changes for the customer. It's more on our back end, where instead of just sending out an invoice, receiving the money and going from there, it gets attached inside QuickBooks to a project, and then the expenses get tracked to that project. So that's a lot of what my sister's doing. And it's nice to have someone else doing that rather than having it just be another thing on my to-do list, but then be able to kind of start looking at it and going, oh, this is where we are. That's kind of nice.
Gotcha. What are the are there a couple of like main ways that contractors typically bill like based on how expensive things are? Like how do they go about doing a markup traditionally?
For a whole project.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of that will come down to how we talked about before. You have your flat rate billing, or you've got cost plus. So
Gotcha.
typically, like on, I would say almost all my jobs, I'm doing flat rate. Right now, we actually have a job coming up in Wickenburg Grant. We're going to be doing cost plus, just because we've got a lot of moving parts and the scope isn't completely decided, and we're 1 month out from when we're starting. So it makes
Gotcha.
it, as far as, rather than me saying, all right, I got to do the flat rate pricing and then go do it again, it's going to be just cost plus. So usually the cost plus will have general conditions, which will include like dumpsters, floor protection, or whatever materials that we're handling. If we need porta-johns outside, whatever. And then we have a management line item, add all the trades together, there's usually a range between 10 to 20%. I would say on the size of projects that I'm doing, 20% is going to be more the standard. And then that's cost plus, fixed cost stuff. We have a markup on it. So essentially, it's very similar. Say again?
You're baking it into the item rather itself.
Yeah. So I take out the general conditions and I take out the management fee. We mark it up. Right now it's 35%. I've been encouraged to get that number up to 60%.
Wow.
Which is nuts. And I'm a little scared of, but I was told, hey, even just start taking baby steps by get that to 40 and 45 and just see what happens. So I hadn't really done that just because we didn't have a super full lead pipeline. And I thought one of the things that we needed to do first was just fix our pricing in terms of understanding what line items we're assigning to each trade. We have, as I did the stuff for the company audit that we're going through, I started to look and go, we're getting pretty spot on with it. So and the lead pipeline's filling up. So now might be a time where we bump up that markup percentage.
Gotcha.
When I have done the 35% versus a cost plus on the same project, just to see where would I land, usually we're landing pretty close. So for anyone who's like, hey, that's odd that you have such a high markup, it's the general conditions and the management fee, like essentially gets baked into that 35%. And we come out essentially pretty close to in the wash. It's the flat rate is a little higher, but that's usually the advantage of doing remodels, is that you have a higher margin that you make.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's super interesting. Thanks for diving deep into that.
Thad, when someone uses tariffs as a excuse for marking up, what's a objection you should come back with? Like, no, it's not, or this guy, they just want to mark it up and that's what it is, and don't not argue, but that's what they're trying to do. Or is it time to find a new supplier?
That's, for me, that's where it depends. And I'm very flexible when it comes to price. And I deal with this even with some of my subcontractors. I've got a plumber who's fantastic. But I would say he's on the cheaper end of most things. And there's times we're talking to him or talking to, there's a couple other trades that I'm working with that they'll be like, hey, is this price okay that I'm giving you? And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, like if I have a fixed price contract that I send to a customer, there are some guys who will say, like, how cheap can we get this? Because they're keeping the arbitrage on the other side of it. I totally understand that. There's a part of it where it's like, okay, I play the game a little bit, but I look at it as I have a margin that I'm trying to make, and the rest of that should go to the trades. So I look at it the same way with the suppliers, as far as the cost that's being paid is not by me, it's by the customer. So if someone has to increase their price, okay, I kind of get it. They have families, whatever. If that's the excuse that they're making to feel better, that like some people feel very uncomfortable raising prices. And if that's the reason why they have to use to raise it, okay. If it's going to be a gross increase in pricing, then yes, I will go look elsewhere to say, hey, how do we make this work? And especially if it's on a project where it's like, I'm going to lose my shorts on this one, then we're going to look for solutions to say, how do we get out of this one? And then we're going to do one of two things. Either find the new vendor and say, going forward, they're going to be our new guy, or we go back to the other company and say, hey, is this what's going on? And do we need to start pricing this in? So one of the things I've been intentional with in the last probably 6 months is trying to get a better idea of my subcontractor's price book, just so that I can better understand. I don't have to be bugging them as I go do the estimates for everyone else. So that's a long tangent way of saying, like, if someone were to use that excuse, depending on how gross of an increase we might have to look somewhere else. But a lot of it for me is trying to have that conversation afterward of saying, how are we handling this moving forward?
Yeah. Smart.
Cool. All right, Connor, we've got 34 pages of notes for your stuff. So hit us with it.
It's how my brain rolls. So first, some of the statistics for Arizona real estate. We have 30,280 active listings, and this is for the ARMLS. So this hits all of Phoenix, surrounding areas, and it goes down to kind of Casa Grande and sometimes up to Payson and a little bit to Prescott, but 30,280. And this is an increase up from 29,916. So from last month. So 364 additional homes. And this is an increase of 25,800 homes from last quarter. So we are seeing a uptick, and it usually does this around this time of year anyway, going into summer and fall. But it seems like a little bit of an increase. Closed properties the last 30 days are right at 6,870. And this is a decrease from last month of 7,560. So more houses on market and fewer are closing and being sold. Current interest rate that I found right now for a 20% down payment, a good credit score, it's right at 6.2% APR. So you're not paying any points. So around 6.2. This is trending. It was down and then up, but it's kind of trending down slowly, trickling down slowly. Recapping some numbers. Currently have 3 vacancies at our apartments in Tempe. These are actually a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms. We have a good mix.
Sorry, do you mind if I ask, you have 3 vacancies out of how many doors?
58.
Okay.
So 3 out of 58 currently. We're usually pretty full. These people just moved out the end of April, so we have a few good leads. We're trying to actively fill these. We try to fill them within, quicker the better, but within 30 days is our goal. So we're shooting for May 1st to have some signed leases. And we have a couple others coming up in May, but we'll work on those at that time. Currently have 2 remodels going on. One is the house we picked up for our 1031 exchange we talked about last month. So I had initially said we had 2 houses in Surprise under contract, and I wasn't sure if we'd close on them. So we had to quickly pick up another house to supplement. And the 2 houses in Surprise did not end up closing. They both fell through. And we actually just got our earnest money back Saturday for the one, earnest money for the other one a few weeks ago. So both of them had some title issues and extra liens on them that the title company wasn't able to clear up, and some discrepancies on extra loans outstanding. So unfortunately they fell through, but we did find one in Scottsdale that we're closed on about a month ago, and we're working on fixing up so we can renovate. We're actually just starting floor today, which is exciting. So all our rough ends are in, drywall's done, painting was last week. We have a really nice fireplace tile that went in on Friday, mantle. It'll look really good. And the other one is another house in South Scottsdale, a townhouse that we're starting right now. It's all demoed, so we're just trying to get some bids for that house. We'll keep both of these as rental houses. That's exciting. We Had 100% rent collected in May, which is good. Some things from last month I talked about is I wanted to create a buyer's website and mailers, do some more direct marketing. So right now we buy from listed properties, off-market properties, from wholesalers, from referrals. But we want to go direct to seller. So this is a way we can cut back on some of our wholesale fees. So created the website, and we actually sent out our first round of mailers on Friday.
Nice.
So I don't think the post office has delivered them yet, but maybe this upcoming week we'll maybe get a little website traffic or some phone calls. Hopefully. Go ahead.
Good.
How many people are going to be receiving your mailers?
I did 100 as a test to see.
Nice.
And then, do you have any kind of analytics on your website to track traffic?
If
There
not,
is.
I know a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have you look at it, Alex, see what we can.
Yeah, if there's any way I can help with that, let me know. Yeah, it's it really helps if you can, especially if you're doing like physical traffic where people are actually like typing in your website. If you can either set other navigations in there, because nowadays AI is setting off a lot of website analytics because they're crawling a lot of websites. Specifically, it's not as bad of a thing for newer websites and just standard websites, but there's a big issue with a lot of like open source tools out there. Their websites are crashing because AI is literally just like constantly using it.
Wow.
And their servers can't handle it. So not that I think that's going to be an issue for your website, but there are some creative approaches going forward to like have more informed tracking.
Sure.
So
yeah,
yeah.
Definitely be looking for some advice on that front.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the list I pulled for the houses was a specific zip code we want, and type of house, year built, when it was last sold. So we kind of broke it all down, and we have about 2,000 houses in that zip code that we'd like to target. So we're starting slow and try to build up to see what kind of response rate we get.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. Action steps for next month, we want to continue to send out mailers, how to better track that. A big thing for us was showings for our properties, apartment showings, in-house showings. Before I was going down in person, showing them, and it's hard to find a time with someone and be able to meet them there. And then you have multiple tours in a week, and it was getting too much for what we had. So just this past week, we were looking at some different companies and programs, and started with a showing software called Show Digs, where it utilizes different showing agents to meet with the prospective tenant and show it for them.
Oh, that's cool.
Flat rate per showing, and then we pay a monthly fee to be on it. We can add unlimited properties. It actually does the listing for us through apartments.com, Zillow, and then it schedules. So scheduling was another big thing that I think this helps with. But this past weekend, we had 4 people tour, which 4 tours, I didn't have to be there when I was enjoying the aquarium with my girls there. So that was fun. Got 1 application through it, and a couple other people said they might apply. So I think overall, so far, it's saved me several hours. So I am thankful for that. We're also looking at another house to purchase next month, actively looking their own direct to seller through other wholesalers or on market. And on market's another good way to find property, since there's a lot of them right now. Then there's 2 big things I want to hit on. The first is, it actually just came out today. It's not set in stone, but people are starting to talk about it. The new tax bill that they say passed the House and Ways Committee of the House of Representatives. So Trump wants to do a big, beautiful, big new tax bill to extend the big, beautiful tax bill he did in 2017. And I don't know. I hope it extends, because the tax cuts would be going away this year, I believe, if something else wasn't put in place. So bring back tax rates and tax code of 2016, which I didn't do much back then, but apparently it's not great. So this new bill came out, kind of outline what they're proposing. And one of the biggest things which affects real estate and real estate investors is bonus depreciation, and which is also known as cost segregation. So Trump started this in 2017, where it essentially accelerates how much depreciation you can take in year 1, year 2, year 3. And we touched on this last month, how it affects the bottom line of your P&L, but it saves you a lot of taxes in the first couple of years because you get a big loss on paper, taking the depreciation early, and then that offsets your income as a real estate investor. But something that's really cool about this also is what I've seen, and what, I don't know, I have other friends who do it, where if both spouses are working, let's say one has just a normal W-2, an employee at a company, and the other one works in real estate, whether they're work as a realtor, work as a property manager, or real estate investor. There's some stipulations for this, but if they're designated a real estate professional, and there's a few IRS guidelines, like it has to be mostly your main income, you have to focus on this, you have to do it a certain number of hours a week. But if your spouse falls into that designation, you can offset your W-2 income with the real estate depreciation, cost segregation, which I've seen people save a ton of money through this. Mm-hmm. So one spouse, let's say they have a medium to high income, the other spouse, manages their one rental property or 2 rental properties, or they manage for other people. They can offset their W-2 income through this. And this new tax bill, they're going to bring back, they say, if it gets passed, 100% bonus depreciation, which just means more tax savings.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which, every indications say it will pass, because Republicans have the executive in both House and Senate. So if it passes through the House, people think, it'll pass through the Senate, then the president will sign it. We should have all learned that in our government classes, how those bills work.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big thing. And I see this affecting maybe real estate investors. I know it did back in 2017 when they first brought it up in 18. Hey there, buddy. We're learning about depreciation. Teach your dad one day. This is big for real estate investors because they know, this is another big thing. So it has to be a property bought between January 19th, 2025 through December 31st, 2029. So it's not retroactive at all. Well, it is till January. But moving forward, if you buy a property, it'll affect these properties. So it's going to, I believe, I'm already talking about, or getting my mind turning of, well, we need to buy another property. What can we do? We'll get this big offset for our income. So I think that'll affect real estate. I hope it passes later this year, whenever Congress decides to work again. They get a lot of days off. I don't know if you guys have ever seen their schedule, but
it's ridiculous.
Pretty nice or bad, I don't know. They don't work a lot. Fundraise. All right, so that's the big thing. Let's hope it passes. I'll be monitoring that. The other thing is how to find an undervalued or off-market property that you can have. Some people call it sweat equity or forced appreciation, whether it's an investment property for yourself or a house you're going to live in. I've known people who've done it both ways. So people right now, they say it's expensive to buy a house. Interest rates are high. But even with some of the people I work with, buyers, they want something that's perfectly manicured in the perfect neighborhood they want, that's been perfectly remodeled by a guy like Thad, who's cut no corners, and it's just a beautiful home you can move into. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately or unfortunately, that house is going to be at market price. And that's the kind of houses that people, maybe they can't afford, but they want to, that it's hard for a first-time home buyer to purchase something like that. So I've seen, and I've worked with clients where maybe you can't have that perfect house quite yet, maybe in a few years, but you buy something now that's maybe needs a little work, or it's undervalued a little bit, where you can renovate it either yourself or hiring Saito builders to help you with it. But it's going to take work to get there. And there's a couple ways to find properties, and we've bought investment properties on the MLS, off the MLS, through wholesalers, or other referrals. And there's just a lot of ways to find properties. But if you are working with the real estate agent, you first want to work with an agent who actually understands real estate. That's important. Surprisingly, some don't. But someone who understands, someone who understands like the building itself and what needs to be done to a house. Because sometimes if it doesn't look pretty, the bones are still good. You know, it's actually a good house. It just needs a little updating, and maybe the neighborhood isn't what you want, but it'll actually work for you now. So working with an agent who is kind of working like a investment real estate agent who understands under market or off market properties, and helping you find those, and making, it could be a lot of offers on market properties, or having connections to off market stuff that maybe other wholesalers or other companies have pocket listings for. That'll help a first time home buyer get into a house that maybe they can afford now, and they don't have to wait longer to purchase something that works perfectly for them.
Connor,
So,
what would you say is like, what are your thoughts on like new builds? Because I know Phoenix specifically has had a lot of land bought in the past few years, and now they're starting to develop on that land, and so you see a lot of new builds. They buy down interest rates. If you're remote enough, like Queen Creek and stuff like that, you know, it can actually be fairly competitive markets. You're seeing Buckeye get super developed as well, at least for Phoenix. How would you say those compare versus more established homes as investment properties, or even, you know, like a first time home?
yeah, I mean, some of the new builds, you are going to get the larger new build communities. They are going to be in parts, like you said, Queen Creek, you know, Northwest Surprise, Buckeye. You're going to be on the outskirts. And how Phoenix is growing, maybe in 10 years, that won't be on the outskirts as much. So if that's something you want, and you're willing to live out there, if you want to live out there, a lot of people do. Obviously, they're buying them and building them. That could be a great option to move into a new product. Yeah, you're right. They do have some rate buy downs if like DR Horton or some of the other larger companies aren't moving their inventory. Like right now, you can get good buy down rates to help with your interest rate. But a lot of those are going to be close or right at market value, or even marked up some, depending on the neighborhood. And you know, I'm not going to speak on specific builders, how their quality of work is, but there's some good products out there. And if that's what someone wants, you should look out there. But a lot of the people I work with want something more city center, closer.
Mm-hmm.
People like specific areas. You know, they drive to work. They can't drive an hour or not.
Yep.
They don't live in California yet. So this is a way, what I'm talking about is to find a property. Maybe it's not in the best condition, but in a part of town you want, and how to force appreciate through finding a realtor who has connections to off-market properties, or just willing to make a lot of offers on a lot of on-market properties for you. I don't know. You know, Thad was in the industry, but some realtors, they want the easy thing. They want the easy offer of 2020 to 2022, and you know, they don't want to work as hard as they used to. So finding a realtor that's okay, looking for a diamond in the rough, making offers, knowing maybe you're not going to get the first 10 or 20 or 30 offers. It could happen. But we've bought investment properties on the MLS and offered something that would make me feel uncomfortable offering, like 100,000 less on a listed house on the MLS for sale. And you send an offer and you go, am I lowballing them? And then they come back and like, okay, we've been on the market 48 days, 62 days, and you're a qualified buyer, we'll go with it. So sometimes it takes understanding the market and the neighborhood and not being afraid to, and I wouldn't even call it lowball. If a property's been sitting for 75 days, something's wrong with it, whether overpriced, not fixed up, overlooked, it gets stigmatized if it's been listed for too long. So there's reasons it's not selling, but being comfortable with making a lot of offers or finding off-market properties and not being afraid of the house that has good bones but isn't aesthetically pleasing right now, because that will make it pretty.
Which, just to kind of jump in on the new build thing real quick.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you're going to see a lot of people buying those homes as new builds. Like, there is a strategy to get in early to a community, buy it because you know that community is going to appreciate as the rest of the homes get built. But for the most part, the reason why you wouldn't, especially right now, is your return on what you're trying to get really isn't, I would say, going to be seen on the other side when they have all these programs going for new homeowners, where they have like a 2-year buy down on the interest rate, helping with closing costs, stuff like that. So it's unless there's something penciling in a different way, like in the established communities that have been there for 20 years, to your point, Connor, that it's people know they want to be there. If someone wants to be in a Surprise, in a Queen Creek, wherever, it's okay, you're renting that house, but I could just buy the one next door, and it's kind of the same thing. So, and then
Maddox agrees.
Yeah, he's got an opinion on it too. But and then I think, Connor, to what we've talked about, I think on the podcast and then even privately, that you guys do a really good job of staying very specific with the type of houses you're going after in terms of age range. You even talked about last time, I think, with the zip codes that you guys stay in.
Yeah.
Just because you understand, I know exactly what's inside that house. I know exactly what I'm going to have to do to that house to make it work. So that's the other thing too, with just understanding it's what you've got and what you're working with.
Yeah. And it's working. If you're a homeowner or an investor and you work with realtors, you want someone who understands the neighborhoods or the zip codes you want to buy in, to have that different connections to other investment houses or other realtors to find that stuff. Yeah. I think it's really important because, it's people's biggest purchase, most likely now or ever in their life. And they need someone they can work with and understand all the ins and outs and nuances of what they're actually purchasing. I've worked with people who they have bought farther out than they would have liked, but it was in the price range they needed, which price range is obviously a big constraint, but people can kind of have some leeway on the location sometimes. So I've worked with people who bought farther out, and they think a couple of years later, why did I 45 minutes away? I'm an hour away. Beautiful house, but there's a reason people want to live towards the center, and there's a reason things get more expensive as it gets consolidated towards the city center.
Exactly.
So,
Sweet. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Connor, before I hop in?
Is there? Let me look at my notes. I don't think so.
Okay. Cool. No, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was very insightful. I don't have a whole lot to talk about, so I'll start wrapping up pretty quickly. The main thing that happened was I had a sales conversation with a property tax consultancy. I honestly thought it went really well. The guy seemed super interested, was taking notes, was very engaged. Told me, it's like, yeah, I'm just going to check with our IT guy. I'll get back to you. That day came and went. I followed up with him. He's like, oh yeah, I'm talking to him right now. I'll let you know. And then I followed up with him a few days later and just completely ghosted. So not responding to anything, not letting me know. So that was frustrating. But something good came out of it in terms of they were talking about some of the counties that they really needed to focus on, or that they had a lot of buildings on. So out of curiosity, I started looking, okay, how hard would it be to add some of those counties to my property tax tool? just as a quick reminder, it scrapes stuff. So it goes to the website, puts in parcel numbers, and then gets the valuation and tax information. And I actually ran into a pretty significant roadblock. So if you've never done scraper programming before, which I'm not going to assume that either of you guys do that in your free time, there is a company called Cloudflare, which is literally built to like block these scrapers and other AI and other things, anything that isn't human from viewing the web page. And as I went down the rabbit hole, I learned that 25% of all websites in the internet use Cloudflare, including quite a few counties. And so basically what was happening was I was able to get like half the information, the valuation information, but then when I was trying to get to the tax information for this specific county, it just would not load the page for my scraper. It would load it for me if I went and tried to like test it myself. And I was driving myself nuts for probably like 48 hours straight, or just not 48 hours straight, but 2 days straight. I was working on the problem. I was like, okay, this is really frustrating. So
as popped a little Adderall and just went at it. We understand.
A little cocaine, you know, no. I do not advocate for the use of any drugs whatsoever. But yeah, so as I was going through, I was realizing this was a significant bottleneck, and so it actually led to me essentially revamping the entire code base. And so switching entire like programming languages, because there were other libraries out there from a different code perspective that could bypass Cloudflare more consistently and easier for someone like me who didn't understand that much. So I kind of ended up having to revamp a lot of things and teach myself Python, which I'd never done Python before. And for that example, I would say Claude or AI or whatever you use is the best like hands-on teacher you could ever have, in terms of you could have them solve the problem for you, and if it's not working, you can have them debug it for you. You can also have them teach you, and you can say, okay, line by line, explain exactly what's happening here. And then when you don't understand anything or understand something, you say, hey, this doesn't make sense. Your explanation here is like, is it this? Is it that? What is it actually? And then it will dumb it down. So an example of something I was working on today, it had this specific thing called a try and a catch statement. So it's a try and then it had all this stuff and then catch. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I was like, is this the same thing as an if statement? Because I do a lot of Excel stuff before. So I was like, oh, is this like an if statement in Excel? And it's like, nope, not at all. This is where it's different. This is where it's similar. If you wanted to do an if statement in Python, this is how you would do it. And so I don't know, that was super, super interesting. I found a lot of value from that.
We're coming out of a jump cut right now.
Yes.
So as far as Alex was saying that not a ton has happened, we've got some personal stuff we just went over that isn't going to be in the episode. But the big thing that I kind of want to reiterate and talk about, that we had the conversation obviously during the month with your interaction with that lead that you're trying to convert. And in my thing with that, and it's been the last like year and a half that you've been doing this, is that we haven't seen it go through all the way.
Yeah.
But you were very, very close. And the sale that would have been on the other side of that would have been very significant.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing too that I kind of want to point out, as far as that, in as much as you might feel like there's not a lot going on, or that you're not as happy with the progress as you would have liked to, I think I would say Connor's in a position where he's working to grow a company that has been more established. I'm working to grow a company that has small incremental money that can be made along the way. Like, and we talked about this as far as I had a couple of years ago where it's like, I'm doing a couple of windows and we're installing those. And it's like, you look at the price tag on that versus the price tag with what you were looking for on that sale. And it's like, it's like hitting a single in baseball versus hitting a grand slam. It's like two different things. So you feel discouraged, and like, I'll let everyone know, like, he's felt discouraged with this, but at the same time, it's a big deal for if and when that goes through, whether it's this customer or a different one, that like the whole thing gets flipped around and flipped on its head.
Yeah, I think the biggest key difference, at least in my business right now, is just that I feel like I've gone from someone who's never played baseball to now all of a sudden I'm playing in like in the majors, and I'm trying to hit a grand, a grand slam, and I'm trying to hit it out of the park. And I don't get too many opportunities to swing, and I think that's the biggest frustration out of the business so far. It's not that I've missed, and it's not that um, I haven't put enough energy into it. I don't feel those things. I think the biggest thing is every opportunity that I have is usually a high value opportunity, but they come along so infrequently that missing on those feels really bad. And look, I know entrepreneurship is a lot of perseverance, and I think both of you guys have seen that firsthand. You really have to push through, and when you're not pushing, it just doesn't move. That's just kind of the nature of the business. So it's just one of those things, and sometimes there's days where you just don't have the energy to push, but you need to do it anyways. And like I know at the end of the day, I'm not going to regret having pushed as hard as I can and trying everything and swung for the fences, because it really does, at least in my example, it does just take one chance. And that could be like literally a life-changing hit. So it is what it is in terms of where I am right now. And maybe I'll be laughing at myself a few months from now. I'm like, wow, what a doofus. I was really worrying about that kind of stuff. But I think that's kind of the tenacity that God definitely gives us sometimes, in terms of we need to have that tenacity to keep persevering. I mean, if Abraham can wait decades for a kid, and trust that God's going to provide regardless, I think I can keep pushing through when things aren't going my way in a few months. So that I would say that's the that sums it up probably better than anything else. But anyways, we don't want to hear my thoughts. We don't want to hear Connor's thoughts. We don't want to hear Thaddeus' thoughts. What about the company thoughts, Thaddeus?
All right, I'm going to keep the company thoughts short tonight, one, because I didn't really get any notes prepared on this one, and then I think we've crossed the hour mark for the episode. But I want to talk about why you should not be your authentic self.
Love
and obviously, this has become a big buzzword type phrase, or a big catchphrase that people use, as far as like, oh, I didn't feel like I was being my authentic self, so I had to change whatever. And it's at the end of the day, the more and more I hear that, like I think it started from a place of people were being put in positions that they didn't feel comfortable with. But after a while, it started to become an excuse for poor behavior or the lack of wanting to change. So I remember talking to a friend of mine, and we were good friends, but no one else in our friend group liked him. And talking to him about like, hey, when you do X, Y, and Z, that's off-putting to people. And his response to me was, well, that's just who I just authentically, and if I'm not being me, what am I doing? And it's like, well, if you're authentically an asshole, then that's not a good thing. It's if you're authentically having some kind of character detriment, then that's not an okay thing just to say, because I'm being authentic, because that is the inner desire that I have, then I can just act on that, and everyone to just say, that's how it is. That's Tom, that's Jimmy, whoever it is, that's what he's doing. It's so the way that I've looked at this is kind of in the reverse, that when we start to identify the characteristics that we want, or if we even start with the outcome we want, look at the people who've achieved that outcome, the actions that they take, then the idea is not that I need to pretend to be something, but I need to transform my authentic self to align with the actions that they're taking. So it's that if the people, like, if someone wants to be in shape, but they're like, my authentic self eats a tub of ice cream every single night, grab sodas every single morning, it's like you're going to have a hard time being your authentic self and being not authentically out of shape. But if you start to align what you want with the actions that you do, pretty soon after a certain amount of time goes by, it's you are now authentically that person. If you start saying, no, I'm going to be on a more regimented eating program and then I work out on a consistent basis, you are now authentically the person who's in shape or who is getting in shape. The same thing happens in business, and it's going to be the same thing that I want to talk to like my employees about, as far as it's that, like, hey, we show up in a certain way, we dress a certain way, we communicate to the customers in a certain way, we have a work ethic, have a like this. It's like, oh, well, I like my authentic self likes to get a little extra, whatever. It's like, that's not going to work. If you need that, you need to go somewhere else. We are looking to bring ourselves in line with the goal and the mission that the phrase that I started using was, we're $1 billion company, just not yet. And the idea is that if we're going to authentically be $1 billion company, we need to do the things that $1 billion company would do before we become that. So it's looking at the whole why you should be your authentic self. Like if someone has deep moral convictions about something and they're going in the opposite direction of that, that's the authentic self that you should listen to. If you're being asked to fudge numbers to commit fraud, like we talked about taxes earlier, if you're in a company and you've got management saying, hey, fudge a little bit so it looks like we made a little less, like, and you feel bad about that because you're like, I'm not being my authentic self, which is a moral, upright person, that makes sense, because at the end of the day, you're saying, I want to be a moral, upright person. But if you're saying, me as my authentic self needs to game 4 hours a day and eat whatever I want, work whenever I want, and I get a unique unicorn schedule, then your character quality that you're looking to align yourself with is laziness and self-centeredness. That's your authentic self, and you need to accept that before you expect anyone else to, because no one's going to accept that quality. So that's a lot of word salad to just say, as far as when you look at who you are as your authentic self, you need to define that in terms rather than just saying, accept me for who I am, without first considering what that is.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it comes down to entitlement, right? In terms of, you think that you're entitled to, I would say this example of like a home buyer who's like, oh, I want it, downtown Phoenix, I want 4 beds and I want it for $300,000. I'm like, all right, well, that's just not realistic in this market. Like you could probably wait a very long time and hope that something comes on the market, but with that set of standards that you said, well, this is just the way it's going to be, and I won't settle for anything less, it's just not realistic. So I feel like with the authentic self, it's usually an excuse to justify poor behavior, and it's easier to say, oh, this is who I am, rather than say, it's easier to make other people deal with it than to admit that you actually have issues or poor behavior problems or whatever it is.
And to kind of approach that even from a different way, like people had the thing where it's like, if you could go back in time and realize saying like, or change one thing, what would you do? And I used to give the same answer that most people did. It's like, nothing, because it made me who I am today. And I started to realize that there's a lot of arrogance in that statement. In terms of that, if I am truly convicted of that, that means that I believe that who I am and the things that have led to that is the ultimate way that it should be. And there's not a way for us to step inside. It's like, hey, like, I wish I could have corrected some things, and not because it's like, oh, but it would have made you a different person. Maybe it would have made me a better person.
Yeah, you have choices and autonomy.
Yeah.
I mean, the same circumstances could happen to 2 different people. One could turn out one way and the other, and just decided,
Yeah.
Yeah. But tying it into the authentic self thing, as far as it's once again saying, if your authentic self is the ultimate, and we need to bow down to that. There's a lot of pride loaded into that statement saying that that authentic self is the one that's going to rule over everyone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
No. I think it was well said.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's close it out. Tell people where they can find you. Alex?
Find me Control Analytics, ctrl-analytics.com, or Alex Von Reich on LinkedIn.
Find me at Connor Teich Real Estate on Instagram.
You can find us on Instagram at Cyto_building and then cytobuilding.com.
Cool. So until next time.
I hope your hammer stays accurate.
Your Wi-Fi fast.
And your work blessed.
See you, everybody.